Thanks for tuning in to episode 6 of the First Synth series. Today we have Red Means Recording, we have Molten Music Technology, we have Oora Music, and we have Run of the Million. It's another set of fantastic stories. Thanks to each of you for contributing today. Run of the Million is going to have an interesting story that you'll want to stick around for. I know them personally, and we'll just say Chris and I almost couldn't be friends after what you're going to hear today. So anyway, be sure to stick around, check that out. I'll leave links to all of their channels in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy. I'm from a YouTube channel called Red Means Recording, and my first synth, as far as I can remember, was a Casio SK1. It's like a little synth about this big, and you could sample into it. It's very famous, like it's in Bob's Burgers.
You making fart sounds, or are you really playing it?
Both? Of course, you know, as a kid, it was just about like barking into it or making fart sounds into it. And then you can play those fart sounds across the entire keyboard.
I taught it to love its country.
Yeah, that was my first. It's kind of like proto OP1. And then I remember when I was in high school, I got a Casio MT540. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. Not only did it have the best demo song I had ever heard in my life, I've had this stuck in my head. It's like a core memory for me. It's so good. It goes so hard. I kind of just want to like do a video where I just rearrange a bunch of old Casio demo songs with like modern synthesizers and stuff, because some of them were really, really cool. Anyways, so I had this thing. The cool thing about this thing was that it had a sequencer in it, or some kind of like recording capabilities. So you could record a piece in it. You know, you'd have to play it all, but you could like multi-track record sequence into it. I remember from my English class, we had to do a project, like a personal project about a novel that we read. So an artistic project that expressed some feeling of the novel. And I had read Lord of the Flies, and so I made this like orchestral piece using the Casio MT540. I don't even know what the hell I was doing. It like kind of like sounded like Lord of the Rings music or something, you know, a lot of drumming. It was very serious. And the only way I could get it onto a cassette tape was play it through the speakers of the Casio MT540 into the cassette player's microphone. Well, I didn't have like a line between the two, right? So what I ended up doing was I got this tape, and it had like some stuff I'd already recorded on it from the radio or something like that. And I played the thing, and then I let the tape run for like what I thought was a really long time. Like I thought it was like 30 minutes, but it was like 2 minutes. And then I said, okay, you can stop listening now. And then I hit stop. So that way, you know, my teacher would know like, okay, you don't have to listen to the rest of the tape and hear the rest of the stuff I had recorded on it. He played the tape in front of the class. I was mortified, and he let it play all the way through to the part where I said, you can turn it off now. I shrunk down to about this big. But yeah, I think that was probably the first like recorded song I ever did. So God bless Casio. Those are my first formative synths that I remember. And I guess as a bonus, the first like real synth that I had was a Roland Juno Alpha, and I didn't know what to do with it. It was all membrane buttons. There was no knobs, so I didn't have a good time with that. But I got a lot of knobs, so I think things turned out all right. Anyways, that's it from me. Have a good day.
Hi, I'm Robin from Molten Modular, and thanks to Matt for inviting me onto this little show to talk about my very first synthesizer. Now, to talk about my first synthesizer, you've kind of got to talk about two synthesizers, or at least a keyboard slash organ slash automatic keyboard slash synthesizer, and then a synthesizer. They didn't exactly appear together, but they're very much rolled up into what I was doing at the time, and I find it very difficult to separate them. So I thought, sod it, let's go with both. But we'll start off with the fantastic Technics SX K200. Now this is probably what you could call the home automatic player keyboard. It had rhythms and automatic accompaniment. It had polyphonic and monophonic sounds. It had built-in speakers and a music stand. It had everything that you could possibly want and need to learn to play with those kinds of organ-y sounds at home. Now the funny thing about this, and the next synthesizer for that matter, is that I had nothing to do with it. It just turned up one day. My dad came home with it, and I thought, heck, I don't really know why. I don't know why we had this thing. What on earth possessed the man to go and get one? So I thought I'd ask him.
Yeah.
So this would have been 84, 85, would it? Do you remember? I mean, do you remember purchasing this thing, and what made you do so?
Well, I knew that you'd got a musical flair, and that you were interested in playing the piano. So I thought it would be quite good fun if we could play this stuff together, or maybe play together. So yeah, that's why I thought that we'd get one, so that we could accompany each other, and you could learn a bit of music on it while I was playing the piano.
Oh, well, see, that's interesting. That at the time, I don't think that had ever occurred to me. That there was, that there was that kind of intention behind it. So yeah, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I mean, I loved this thing. I absolutely loved it to death. I played it all the time. I learned all sorts of songs on it. You could get songbooks that were sort of written for this sort of keyboard that gave you one finger chord information and a melody line to play along to, and I soaked that up. Absolutely soaked it up. And this was 85, 84, 85, something along those sorts of lines. Now, it didn't have a mass of sounds or anything, but what I really sort of lent into was it had this particular brass sound. Now, the brass sound by itself was quite horrid. It was quite stark and stabby. Whereas when you turned on the chorus, it suddenly turned into this quite gorgeous pad, which I used all the time. I constantly used it. And that combined with the automatic accompaniment at the bottom that you could change around, it would actually change what you were playing here too. So it would affect both sides. You could then tie on a solo instrument, a monophonic instrument at the top, and play that like as the lead. So you could have paddy chords and a lead going on. Beautiful. Beautiful it was. But then something else happened. And that was the arrival, again, in a similar way. My dad turned up with a DX100. And again, it was one of these things where I came home from school and you'd bought a DX100. And it's like, so why? What happened? I mean, what made that happen? I mean, I was fascinated by Yamaha synths at the time. I was reading up about DX7s and all this stuff, all the bands and the music at the time that I was into. So this was a couple of years later. So I was, mid-teens. So I was a bit more interested in popular culture. And FM synthesis through the DX Yamaha synthesizers was a massive phenomenon at the time. And you came home with a DX100.
I think that was just an upgrade. Having had the first one and being interested in how it performed and what you could perform on it. And that was obviously a lot more advanced and a lot more compact.
Yeah.
It got a lot more sounds and a lot more rhythms in the same sort of space.
Now, I'm not entirely sure that he knew what that was or what that meant. He seemed to talk about it having rhythms, which it certainly doesn't. But what it did have was a whole bunch of sounds. I mean, it's a 4-operator FM synthesizer. It looked weird, it looked small, but it reflected what you were seeing on top of the pops. And that was just terribly, terribly exciting. It had these great bass sounds. It had like acoustic folk guitar sounds, bell sounds, of course, weird, wonderful sounds. And I immediately got stuck in and programmed the heck out of the thing. I mean, it's odd really, because I had no idea what synthesizers were supposed to be like, and so it's never occurred to me, it had never occurred to me that programming an FM synth was somehow difficult, because for me it was just how it was. This is what you did. In order to program a synthesizer, you went from button to button. looking on a tiny little screen to see what that was, and then moving a slider, moving shift and the same button, moving a slider, and you would gradually, painstakingly make your way through every single parameter and adjust it for reasons you wouldn't really know, and you'd come out the other end with something a bit weird. And that was just how it was. The other thing was that it sat perfectly on the Technics. Perfectly. We have a little bit of a clip of that, of me and Dad practicing at home. Now, before you pass judgment, this was a very, very long time ago. It's been such fun thinking about this. It really has. So thanks, Matthew, for inviting me to do so and to spend a little bit of time just considering these origins. I hope that was helpful. In the meantime, go and make some tunes.
So the first synth, I think I got my first synth 3 times, and I want to explain why. The first one was, I think, 1999 or 2000, something like that. I was in a band playing new metal stuff, and if you remember, there was that precise moment in which every new metal band had to have the DJ that would scratch. And I was playing guitar, but I wanted to be cool, and so I bought 2 Technics and a Waldorf microwave. I have very blurry memories of that because, of course, it was a very deep synth. I didn't have a clue what to do with that. So basically, I ended up for our show using 2 presets and do some like wow, 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 very silly stuff. I never learned how to use it. So it lasted a couple of months, then I sold it, never looked back. After that, I remember Electron come out with the mono machine. I don't remember actually if it was before or after. But anyway, I bought the mono machine, and even in that case, I didn't have a clue what to do with it. Because again, I was still a guitar player. I needed to have that immediacy of an instrument. And but at that moment, I remember, damn, this thing is cool. I remember when Electron came out with the seed station and then the mono machine and then the machine drum. I always feel like, wow, these things are so, so cool. But I didn't have a use for it. I didn't have the patience to learn. So sold it, regret it, because then I bought it later on again. And even the Waldorf microwave, I just checked, it's like 2K now, so I wish I kept it. But the real first time I bought a synth, learned it and enjoyed it was the Moog Minotaur. That was a different approach. I was really interested, and I had the plan to get all the Roland old synth like 303, 808, 909 that little by little I bought back when it was a little more affordable. But to start, I follow advice of some friend and say, just get something that is very simple and let you understand the basic of synths, the synthesizing sound, which now, of course, seems so easy. The Minotaur is a very simple synth, if I well remember, 2 oscillator. It was weirdly limited in the range. I don't know why. So somehow was a limited synth in a way that it cannot go in the higher pitch. In fact, then Moog released the Siren after. I wish they just did a nice synth that covered everything. It was super straightforward. It had the classic tone that you expect from a synth when you are a newbie. And you know, that big filter that sounds gorgeous, and it really led me to understand how things work. I remember from that one, then I moved to the Roland 101, which was another very simple synth, but you know, start adding here and there, and then little by little, I got to collect a lot of stuff, and now I'm working in the synth world, so I have the chance to try a lot of stuff that come in the market. Do I miss any of the First Synth? Most of them I kept. I didn't keep the Moog Minitar because I felt at a certain moment that this is too limited for me, which I kind of regret because it is a very good sounding synth for the lower register. Not that I need it though. I wish I kept both the machine, the mono machine that I don't have. I just bought back the machine drum, too expensive now. And I wish I kept the Waldorf microwave, first because it was orange and weird looking, and then I think it was the moment where everybody was crazy about the digital synth, the virtual analog synth, which I think is coming back. And Waldorf was good. I remember I was a kid at that time, and I don't know how I pulled off to buy something that was expensive at the time. I just check online when I wanted it and see what is the coolest synth, and somehow internet pushed me to buy that one. It was really hard to find because I lived in a small town in Italy where there was no shops, there was no internet to buy from. It was really complex to source instrument back in the day, except like guitars or stuff that are really basic. But yeah, I kind of wish I kept that one. The reason, to get back why I bought it, as I told you, the first time was to be cool because I was a kid playing in a band and I had to have some cool instrument on stage. But the second time when I really wanted to learn was to find a building block for my knowledge, to just like, okay, I'm gonna learn how these things works because it will let me understand everything that will come after. All right, that's about it. That was my first experience with the synth world. Thanks for having me. Ciao.
All right, take one. It's more like take 5. Hi, I'm Chris. That's Amber. That's Eyeball. And we are Run of the Million. We write and record our own music, put it out. I'd like to thank Matt for inviting us to be on here. We work with Matt on songs and he contributes to ours and we put stuff on his. And anyway, Matt asked me to talk about this here Prophet 600 keyboard. This keyboard came from my brother Aaron. It sat in his basement where we used to practice music, get down there and jam and do stuff on Sundays. And this Prophet was actually a beer stand for as long as I can remember. It sat in my brother's basement and sat on its side and it stuck up to about here. They would sit next to me while we played music and I used it to hold my beers and didn't think anything of it. I would probably say it was down there maybe for 10 years until my brother moved out of his house and he asked me if I wanted it. And I thought, well, I don't really need a beer holder at my house, but anyway, I said, well, what's wrong with it? And he said, well, I think all the keys in a certain octave are out. They don't work at all. And the thing was pretty grimy and covered with cat and dog hair. So I don't remember, and beer probably. Yeah, it was nasty when we got it. So I said, yeah, I'll take it. And I brought it home with me and cleaned it up and stuck it in the closet, and it sat there for years. And then I got to talking to Matt one day at work, and Matt was talking about Prophet keyboards. And I said, I think I have a Prophet. And Matt was like, what? So I went home on lunch that day and pulled this thing out and came back from lunch and told him, yeah, I got a Prophet 600. And Matt just couldn't believe it. And I told him the story of how we used it for a beer holder for many.
Probably like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, he was horrified. Yeah, I told him we used it as a beer holder and that I didn't think it worked. So I got it out later that night, cleaned it up, plugged it in, and sure enough, an entire octave was out on it. So Matt and his father, who I believe is an electrical engineer, downloaded the manual for it, took the thing apart and fixed it, And now the Prophet gets used from time to time in our original music. And anyway, that's the story of the Prophet. And thank you, Matt, for having us on for the interview.